Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Ellie on Point, where we talk about science, the self health, biohacking, and GHK where applicable. And today we have a very, very special guest. He is fellow biohacking colleague, and also what he practices, I practice as well. And I find it one of the most effective biohacks out there. So our guest today is Charles Florendo. He is the head of ancillary services from in Mary Child's Hospital, and he is also a doctor in family medicine as well as the medical advisor of Buteyko International. And today we're going to talk about this amazing method that he is helping hundreds of clients online or in person to overcome a lot of these conditions. And it's an amazing self-help biohack. Welcome, Doc Charles.
Welcome. Thank you, Ellie, for inviting me.
You're very welcome. I've always been wanting to invite you to Biohacking and Beyond, which is my podcast. And I decided, let's just do it both ways. Let's just do a live webinar in Biohacking Philippines since we're promoting the Unlimited Biohacking Academy. And then also we'll make this into an episode in Biohacking and Beyond. How did you get into Buteyko, Doc Charles? And how long have you been practicing this method?
Oh, it's a very nice question. Actually, I was born asthmatic. So at the hospital I work in, I was always there. And what happened was there was a time that I got such a bad asthma attack that I woke up in the ICU. And my dad was actually telling my siblings that, I actually thought I was going to die, because I wasn't breathing anymore the night before. I was actually around 7 or 8 years old when that happened. So I grew up with having very bad asthma, and I'd always be absent for school once a month, every year. 1 month every year. Very bad asthma. As years went by, I developed a liking for alternative medicine. For one, I started trying out different kind of teas, and it cleared up my skin. Nawala yung pimples ko, no? So I became very interested in alternative medicine. And then one time when I was taking up medical school, I continued to read about alternative medicine. I encountered the Buteyko method. So sabi ko, I need to learn more about this, no? Kasi I feel it's a disservice to our patients when as doctors we discourage alternative medications without even learning about them. So I do have a lot of classmates who tell me, Charles, ba't yun naniniwala dyan? Ano, wala namang studies. Sabi ko, no, we have to study it first. It's our obligation to study before we comment. Kasi how can I comment if I don't know anything about it? So I had to study Buteyko method. I purchased books. I was reading about it. I couldn't understand it from the books actually. No? I mean, like, Ellie, could you learn how to swim from a book? I don't think so. No? It's there, how to swim, whatever you're supposed to do, but you really won't be able to learn swimming just by reading, no? And that's how I felt with the Buteyko method. So I enrolled in a class. Somebody came over to the Philippines and he taught it, and I enrolled. And what happened was, after I took up the class, on the first day I was driving back from the class, I could feel my back muscles. I said, it's different, huh? It's different. And then I started doing Buteyko method. The good thing about Buteyko is my asthma completely disappeared, or my hyperacidity disappeared, my posture improved, and then my sleep became so much better. It became so much better. And then I lost a lot of weight. I lost 20 pounds
Wow.
in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, very fast. And all my classmates were asking me, Chas, anong sakit mo? Anong sakit mo? Biglang pumayat, no? So this was 2000, and I think this is around 2003. So that means I've been practicing Buteyko method for around 22 years now, because it's 2025 now. So that's pretty long, yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that
This
was
is
my
Jack
story.
Vigen, right? Jack
Yes,
Vigen.
under Jack Vigen. So he teaches he calls it the classical Buteyko method. It's an the older version of Buteyko method.
Right. So I'm interested in that because I met Jack in 2014 for the same reason. I also had an asthma attack. And actually, same thing. I was asthmatic as a kid. And then the doctors were saying, you should just be an athletic kid. Diba? If
Mhm.
you increase your lung capacity, your stamina and endurance, then your lungs will be stronger. And true enough, came true. I became very obsessed with exercise. I already had abs at 14 years old and really, really exercised for that alone. It's just because I felt so free after having so many asthma attacks as a kid. They disappeared completely from teenage years all the way to my 20s, all the way to my 30s. But suddenly asthma reappeared around 2014 in my early 50s. And then I was wondering why.
I have the opposite now. On my case, it was the opposite. The doctors told me not to exercise. Whenever I
Wow.
exercise, I'd get the asthma attacks.
Right, right.
And I remember I was enrolled in. I remember you were a black belter in Taekwondo.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I was joined in kickboxing. So it was just kickboxing. And then after 4 sessions, they had me sent home. I didn't know why. And it turned out that during the fight, I would turn blue. All the coaches got really scared. So I was asked, you can't do sports. On my case, I couldn't.
That is so interesting. I really thought that everybody who exercised would outgrow asthma
Asthma.
because that's what they saw. But yung pala, your experience is completely opposite. But
Mhm.
the same solution was Buteyko breathing, for
Yes,
both
yes.
of us, for either case. Because in 2014, when I met Jack, rest
Mhm.
in peace, Jack, and it was quite harsh. I mean, I have to admit, the way he was teaching it was quite harsh. It was very, very difficult. And it's not easy holding your breath for 3 minutes. And the lead up to the 3 minutes, it's quite difficult. But yes,
Mhm.
I lost weight. My asthma nawala. My dog dander allergy that I've had since I was 5 years old disappeared completely, even to this day. And this was 2014. So it was, for me, it was quite miraculous.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. For the benefit of our viewers, I'd like to just take note now that the old way of teaching Buteyko was very difficult. It's true that we went through this very difficult way now. Eventually, when I learned, I took up Buteyko and I was retrained by those who teach it in Europe. And in Europe, their method of teaching Buteyko is much easier. And they found that there was no advantage to have people struggle and fight off, all these things for the technique. They said it's the same thing, that they get the same results when the people are more relaxed and all. So the new modern Biteco now, it focuses more on relaxation rather than, as you said, breath holds and all these things. It's now focused on relaxation. And we do get very good results also.
I love that. I just realized, Doc, that we've been using Buteyko, but we haven't really given the 30-second rundown on what Buteyko method is
Oh,
and who
yes.
Constantine Buteyko is. You can give us that background.
Yeah, so in the 1950s, there was this medical student from Russia, and he developed what they call this was a life-threatening type of hypertension. So they had different terminologies, medical terminologies back then. No? Right now we call it hypertension one, hypertension two. Back then they had different terminologies. I think they called it malignant hypertension. And at that time, they didn't have many of these medicines we have today. So when you develop malignant hypertension, it's a death sentence. You will die in about 3 to 5 years. So Dr. Buteyko actually developed this kind of hypertension while he was a medical student. And in his effort to get well, he started to read and read and read and do a lot of research. And he discovered that it's not his discovery, but one of the things that he read about was that our blood vessels are controlled. No, how big or how small your blood vessels are controlled by carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a vasodilator. If you increase your carbon dioxide, your blood vessels will vasodilate. It will become bigger. And if your blood vessels become bigger like that, it will relieve blood pressure. Your blood pressure will go down. And so he started to work on finding a way to increase carbon dioxide, and he developed this breathing technique. Well, it's mostly breathing, but Buteyko method is much bigger than just breathing. But when he would do this breathing technique and increase the carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, his blood vessels would open and his blood pressure would go back to normal. So the Buteyko method, the technique he developed, actually he didn't call it Buteyko method. No, he had a different name for it. It was his followers who called it Buteyko method after him. So this was Dr. Buteyko, and he developed this technique primarily for hypertension. But when he graduated from medical school, he joined the science center in government science center in Russia, and they started doing research using this technique for a variety of different conditions, and they found it was very effective for many things. But number one was for asthma. Number one, asthma. Now the nice thing here is he didn't want the Russian government to use his invention, his technique, just for the military, because at that time the Russian military was just going to use it for their soldiers to make super soldiers. So he left the government service and he put up his own private service to be able to teach Buteyko method to spread it.
Wow. Thank you so much for that rundown. And there were a variety of conditions that were also discovered that Buteyko was, because if you look at it, Doc Charles, about breathing is so central to everything, our nervous system. So breath is a communicator of whether you're safe or in danger. So there's something about the gas exchange and the breathing mechanism that was biohacked there. which is really, really amazing. So, Doc, there's this always this misconception that people say that CO2 is dangerous or dirty, or you hear that sometimes. But actually, we find that CO2 is actually the magic gas here in this method. And would you say that this is the Bohr effect when
Yes,
we look at Buteyko?
the Buteyko method has a lot of effects on it. The Bohr effect is one of them. The other ones that are related to it is the oxyhemoglobin curve.
Okay, what's that?
So basically, each red blood cell in your blood can bring as many as 6 units of oxygen.
Okay.
They can there will be 6 units of oxygen that can attach to each red blood cell. Now, when the red blood cell reaches your cell, it's supposed to release the red blood cells, right? Except it doesn't unless there's a carbon dioxide molecule that comes in. So in order for the red blood cell to release oxygen, you have to also get 6 molecules of carbon dioxide to connect to that red blood cell. So it's like the carbon dioxide will replace the oxygen so that the oxygen can be released
Oh,
like this. So
wow.
if you lack carbon dioxide in your body, your red blood cells will hold on to more and more oxygen. So yes, when you do the blood test, you see, okay, you put a meter here and they see how much oxygen is in your blood. You will see it's 100%. There's lots of oxygen, but that's the main problem. The oxygen is remaining in your blood. It's not going to your body cells. You need more carbon dioxide to be able to release that oxygen into your cells. So this is the oxygen hemoglobin. You can actually chart it, and if you chart it, it forms a curve, and that's why we call it the oxygen hemoglobin curve, like this.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for the science and also creating that visual. And what comes to mind is, this is self-health. This is what I'm crazy about is because our body contains all of these self-healing mechanisms. There's so many secrets about the body that we have not discovered. And today Charles is sharing one of them and also the science behind it and why it works so well. And so what comes to mind is an advanced biohack. So biohacking can be self-help, very basic. You use it without any gadgets. You use it with knowledge and practice. But there's also an advanced biohack machine that we have called exercise with oxygen therapy, adaptive contrast that builds on this particular, what you call it, hemoglobin, oxygen hemoglobin effect and the Bohr
Yes.
effect.
And it's actually the same. It's directly related to the Bohr effect. This one.
Right. Right. So it's the same thing, Doc. In this particular machine, you exercise in hypoxia, so about 11%. So if we're breathing 21% oxygen right now, there's a valve that will cut off most of the air, and you only breathe in 11% oxygen. So that creates a starvation, kind of
Yeah.
forces the carbon dioxide to build and everything. And then when you're at the height of it and you're done and you need to breathe in already, then we put you to hyperoxia naman. So 93% O2. So very high oxygen naman
I
to
remember seeing
refill
that.
that.
That's the one on the
Yeah.
bicycle.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's one of the bicycles. That's advanced biohacking. But, as you can see, Doc Charles is already helping hundreds of clients and patients who do not have an EWAT machine, right? And are just
Yes,
using
yes.
what they're born with, which is why I'm so crazy about this particular method. So, Doc, what are some of the patients' conditions that you've seen Buteyko has been very successful with? I'm sure asthma, sleep apnea, but what else outside of that?
Well, yes, you're right. Now, asthma is number one. Sleep apnea is another. I've seen hyperacidity. So hyperacidity is or GERD, no? GERD, there's lots of people with GERD and they just keep coming back. They take medicines and then when the medicine is over, the GERD keeps coming back. Buteyko, if they do Buteyko, the GERD doesn't come back anymore. And then panic attacks. I love this for panic attacks because it's the only thing I've really seen for panic attacks that really works. So I've had patients who come to me and they were already prescribed by psychiatrists for anti-anxiety medicines. And I tell them, you do this first, don't take that medicine. And they never had to take the medicine. The panic attack's completely gone. Yes.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
these are the top conditions that I treat with. Oh yeah, there's one more, the COVID. I'm very proud to say, Ellie,
Yeah.
there's no COVID patient who died under my care as long as they followed the Buteyko method. So I had during the time of COVID, the height of COVID, there was this impoverished community and they would contact me and there was someone there, his saturation was going down to 60%. And they told me, Doc, we'll run him to the hospital. I told them, no, you bring him to the hospital, he will die. You give me a computer, put him on front of the computer, I'll teach him. And I started teaching him. After our sessions, his oxygen would go back to 90%. When he continued this, he made a full recovery, and those who have long COVID, so long COVID, those who suffered from COVID, afterwards they find themselves to get easily tired. They seem to have shortness of breath every so often. This will take care of it. Buteyko method.
Amazing, Doc. So they could just do a simple control pause, like the very basic technique, and then repeat that every day. Is that normally what you would recommend, or do they have to go through a whole workshop with you, not progression training?
Well, what I would recommend they go through the workshop. Although
Yeah.
I still do during, especially during COVID, with brain emergency, so I give them one session. But what I recommend is the controlled breathing. So it's like you feel your chest, you feel your breathing, and you slowly regulate it, and you regulate it and you relax it. Make it smaller like this. The thing is with Ellie, with a lot of lifestyle changes, modifications, it's all about habits. I mean,
Yes.
like, try this out, Ellie. If you put your hands
Okay.
together like this, put your hands together like this. Okay, which thumb is on top? Your right or your left?
Left.
Your left. Okay, move your hands again and put it back together. Which thumb is on top? Still the left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still the
So
left.
I didn't instruct you to put your left one on top, but it's always going to be left because that's your habit. That's what you're used to doing when you're not thinking about it. Okay, now you shift your thumb. No, I mean, I want you to put it like this. So you're gonna be shifting your thumb and your other
Okay.
fingers. And what does it feel like? Yeah.
Weird.
Weird, no? We didn't do anything wrong. It's not like it's something bad, no, but it just feels uncomfortable and weird. So when we introduce something different from what you're used to, your habit, your body tends to say no to it. It feels weird and you don't want to do it, no? So this is
Right.
the problem when we just tell people, okay, this is all that you have to do. Okay, just do this like this. They will probably do it once or twice, and after a while they say it feels weird, it feels uncomfortable. So what I always recommend is they enroll in a program so that I will supervise them. First, when they're in a program, they're enrolled, they have accountability. It's like they feel that they enrolled in something valuable, important, so they put some more value into it. Secondly, I get to watch over them and I tell them, oh, you're slagging behind or you're doing this. So they feel there's a coach that's you're pushing them. There's someone that's guiding them. So they get to do it. Because if you don't, you just try it yourself, it feels uncomfortable. And after a short while, you're just gonna quit. So that's why I always recommend that they go through a program.
We'll find out what programs you have at the end of the show. And then also, I wanted to check, Doc Charles, what about for kids? Do you modify it for children so that it's a habit that they can take on without much difficulty or fear?
Yes.
And is there an age limit as well? And have you seen kids with, special needs conditions? Yeah.
Definitely. For children, we start at around 6 years old. Of course, it depends on the maturity of the children, but usually 6 years old. And our program for Buteyko is based on movement and games rather than controlling the breathing and all. It's mostly games for them, depending on their maturity, because there are children that are around 12, 13 years old that they're on the border. You give them the children's program, they might get bored with it. So they might as well do the adult program. But there's some who are 12, 13, they don't like the adult program. They'll get bored, so they want the children's program. So when they're at around the adolescent age, we have to start seeing which program will match them more. Yes, but beyond that, when they're like 13 and above, they're usually the adult program is good already.
Right. So if you had Buteyko at 7, 8 years old, it would have been safe for you to do it at that time, at that age,
Yes.
especially to address asthma.
Yes, definitely. However, I do have a lot of my mga pamangkin and some of my patients who I did teach them when they were around 7 or 8. I had to teach them the adult version again when they were much older because the adult version is also it's also very nice, and it's not play based, and you can't do play based anymore for adults.
Right. Yeah. I remember whenever I get like a clogged nose, like sinuses, or besides if the nose is clogged, I would do Buteyko, like a 2-minute Buteyko, and it opens up the sinuses. It opens up the nasal passages kaagad. It's like the fastest thing on the planet because it's a vasodilator.
Yes. And it's not just fast, it's effective. And what I like about it is if I do the one set, the clogging of the nose doesn't come back anymore. Unlike if you use a inhaler, it will unclog and then it'll plug up again. If I blow my nose, it will unclog for just a while and then it'll plug up again. With the Buteyko, it's permanent. The rest of the day, it doesn't come back anymore.
Right. Doc, Jack Vision used to tell me that he had a lot of clients who were on the CPAP machine. So CPAP is for sleep apnea. And a
Yes.
lot of them like ended up throwing the machine away, that the expensive machine, because they no longer needed it after doing a whole program with him. And is that something that you've also seen some success with in terms of sleep apnea?
Well, sleep apnea, I've been focusing my practice on asthma rather than sleep apnea. So I've been getting mostly asthma patients rather than sleep apnea. But I do have a few sleep apnea patients. No, I wasn't able to get them out because it was connected to their HMO. So if they remove it was the one I had was related to their medical insurance. So if they stop taking the CPAP machine, the medical insurance would also stop. But also stop their coverage. So they had to keep it on. But these are the bad ways by which companies are tying us up together with technology. They're forcing us to take these kinds of treatments. So they're doing it
Yeah.
by law or by coverage or these things, no? And it's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I don't agree with that either. So that's so interesting because say the sleep apnea, if you look at it from Germanic healing knowledge or German new medicine, we know the psychobiological root cause of it is it's like an overwhelm conflict. It's more of like, and it could be tied to an overwhelm with a person and an overwhelm meaning a physical overwhelm. Parang going up the stairs is too hard. So I could see how when you add more oxygen into the body as fuel, it would be a little bit easier to do more physical tasks. So I could
Yeah.
see how, because when we look at Gamanshi Kunde, it's like we have to look at the psychobiological life situation that caused that overwhelm. So we have to look at fixing the relationship with that person who's overwhelming him. But then if it's a physical aspect, then having more oxygen, like the mitochondria having more energy and more oxygen to do that physical task would make sense as to why Buteyko would have helped sleep apnea.
Well, that's one. But let's say you put it this way, Ellie. If you feel overwhelmed or a person who feels overwhelmed, what is that person's breathing like? When a person is overwhelmed, they tend to
Right. Yeah, yeah,
they tend to
yeah.
breathe like this, deeply and all, no? And that will make your carbon dioxide crash. Earlier, we talked about how carbon dioxide is a vasodilator. No?
Yes.
Now we can talk
Yeah.
about another topic of carbon dioxide as a bronchodilator. When
Right.
you have carbon dioxide, opens up your airways. This is the reason why when you did the Buteyko method, your nose would open up. Now, because it opens up your airways, it opens up the airways here. That's why it works for asthma. And for sleep apnea, it's the same thing. While they're asleep, the airways become physically smaller, and that's why they start to snore because the air goes through the a tight airway. Sometimes, yeah, the tight airway, and that'll cause a lot of the snoring and a lot of the blockage, no? And so, if you increase the carbon dioxide while the person's asleep, it will open up. In fact, the sleep apnea itself, Ellie, is a response of the body trying to increase the carbon dioxide. So what do I mean by this? You don't have enough carbon dioxide, the airways start to become smaller. So what is your brain going to do? It's going to tell you, Ellie, we don't have enough carbon dioxide. I'm going to stop you from breathing so that we're going to increase the carbon dioxide in your body. So you actually stop breathing in the hope that you will get that carbon dioxide up. Your problem here is our body is our brain is not that well coordinated many times. So when your body has stopped breathing to increase the carbon dioxide, another part of your brain starts to panic. It says, Ellie, why are you not breathing? Are you dead? Wait, wake up, wake up. So it starts to tug you so you start to kick and you wake up and then you start to breathe heavily again. So because your one part of your brain panics. So this is what happens in sleep apnea. The person always keeps waking up, always bad sleep like this. And then the carbon
Yeah.
dioxide is always very low. So the airways is always very tight, especially
Right.
during sleep. Yes.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Yeah, I see that. Oh my gosh. If you look at it from a biological standpoint, the body is trying to increase the carbon
Carbon
dioxide.
dioxide.
That makes so much sense. So, Doc, why is it that, okay, so you were saying that an overwhelmed person breathes deeply. However, in a lot of esoteric breath work, we are always encouraged to breathe deeply. In fact, I just posted something today about the physiological sigh, which comprises two sharp inhales and a long exhale. What do you say
Yeah.
about that, Doc? So the long exhale, we are kind of releasing too much CO2
you're releasing it, but you're releasing it slowly. You're
Ah.
not telling persons to deep breathe like that. No, you're
Oo,
telling
yeah.
them to release it slowly and gently also, right? So it's still, you are maintaining it in a way. You're still slowing it down.
Okay, thank you so much. Because then that would also answer my question about heart math, which also is a prolonged exhale.
Yes.
And then why do we feel so good with it? And yeah, you're right. There's no real air hunger anyway. Okay, so that's the difference when you go
Yeah.
ah, ganyan. And
Yeah.
I also notice when you do ujjayi breath, which is the yogic style of breathing when you're doing your asanas, it's kind of a contained exhale because the breath never really goes out. So do you know that ujjayi breath, doc, where it's kind of like you're trying to mist a glass window, but it's inside. It's like when you
Mm.
exhale, it feels like the CO2 doesn't really go out of the mouth, but stays in. So
Yeah.
could that be like a version of what you were saying, the Bohr effect, but very slight?
Well, first of all, Buteyko method does not have the monopoly on the breathing. And a lot of the stuff that Buteyko method now, Dr. Buteyko, after he developed this technique, he was able to travel to India many years after. And he actually incorporated some of the yoga techniques into the Buteyko method. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did study, no? But he did note that not all the yogas are working. There are particular ones that have the principle in tow, particularly pranayama. Pranayama is the one that had it closest. In fact, if you see the yogis in India, no, they have like they have this cloth here, and then
Yeah.
they have no shirt on, no, and then they're
Oo.
just sitting down like that, and then their chest isn't moving and their stomach isn't moving. So
Mm-mm.
as if they're breathing as if they're not breathing at all. So they're breathing very very small amounts of air. Yeah,
Right.
but the problem is there's some people who took note of these people or who studied under them, and then they taught somebody else. This somebody else wrote the book, and then the person who read the book is now our yoga leader here, now our yoga expert here in the Philippines. So the yoga has changed a lot, and many of times that the focus on some of the yoga teachers now is no longer on that having those small breaths, but now they're teaching them having a position and then taking as much air as you can and then exhaling it as much as you can. So that's why sometimes we also see a lot of people getting into trouble with yoga. I do know people practice yoga and they still have asthma attacks. I've had people who came to me teach yoga. They're not yoga. They don't just practice yoga. They are actually the yoga instructors, and they were suffering from constipation. They were suffering from these things, which I said that's not supposed to happen when you do yoga. That's because they tend to have this type of yoga that's already focusing on removing as much carbon dioxide in the body as possible, which is the reverse. The real yoga, the original yoga, did pertain to maintaining that level of carbon dioxide, very similarly to the Buteyko method.
Kaya pala really the practice, it has to be ujjayi breath. No, everybody and her sister are yoga instructors on YouTube and everywhere. And it's always inhale, exhale. It's not really, they don't really always encourage ujjayi breathing. It's really just the regular inhale and then exhale.
Are yoga books where they actually say that carbon dioxide is toxic and it should be removed from your body, which is again, this is not what we think is correct. I think this is wrong.
Oh, yeah. And then the fact that yoga is actually about the breath, it's actually pranayam. And the asanas it's more of like how to regulate your breathing with movement. So yoga is actually a practice of breath
Mhm.
than it is about movement. Yeah. So that's interesting. Thank you. I'm glad I asked that question. It became so. Doc, so pranayam, are there particular like yogas that Dr. Buteyko talked about, like hatha yoga, vinyasa yoga, ashtanga?
As far as I know, only the pranayama yoga was discussed. The other
Just
types was he didn't really mention the others yet.
Okay, that is so fascinating to me how these thought leaders go back to ancient practices and traditions like the Sanskrit, and even Dr. Hammer, the founder of Germanische Heilkunde, also was fascinated with Sanskrit. It's like, you know what, these Indians, the Ayurvedics, the Vedics and all, they were the original biohackers. They
Yeah.
really knew the mechanism of the body and how it worked. So it's so amazing to me that it still holds true to in modern day. So my next question, Doc, was: have you done Buteyko with athletes? Because I remember Jack telling me the next time you do your workout, your Pilates workout, only breathe through the nose. Don't exhale out. It's quite challenging. But what about if we have triathletes who are, my gosh, breathing through the nose the whole time for like 42 kilometers? Is
Yeah.
that practical or is that even possible?
We do have special, we don't tell people to hold their breath for 40 kilometers. There are other exercises for this that we can do. In fact, there are actually Olympic athletes who use Buteyko method. So the American track and field athletes, a lot of the Russian athletes, definitely, that's a given. They use Buteyko. Australian athletes, they use Buteyko. Particularly the Australian swimming team was famous for using Buteyko method, no? So we do have a lot. Unfortunately, here in the Philippines, I haven't been able to reach out to athletes, and I've decided to focus my practice on asthma. Part of the reason at Ellie is because I'm not athletic, so I can't share with me. I have a hard time sharing with them or relating with athletes because I'm not athletic. You know, my background was every time I do sports, I'd get into an asthma attack. So ever since my doctor would tell me, don't do sports, ever. It's very useful, and I'd be very happy to work with athletes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's work together with athletes because I really, really want to work together with them. And that really makes sense, especially if there's like, if it's a free diving or if it's the swimming or the performance swimming and all, where there's kind of a breath hold.
Oh, you mentioned free diving. I did have a free diver before. And what's
Okay.
interesting, you know, the problem with free diving, Ellie, is you can only practice free diving if you're in if you're in the sea or in the pool, right? Right now you're in your background is your center. You cannot practice free diving there. You don't have that deep pool. But with Buteyko method, I was able to get him to actually still practice the breathing and all, even if you don't have the pool. He was able to practice it.
Amazing, Doc. Did that improve his performance as well? Like, did it increase his ability to stay down longer?
I think so, yeah. Also, he noted one of the problems we have with free diving is when they resurface, sometimes they can black out if they
Yeah.
go too fast and all. He was able to improve that part because with Buteyko, you're training them to control the breathing to make it more relaxed like this. So he was able to get more relaxed breathing whenever he would surface.
Right, Doc. We really should have this for athletes. I mean, it should be part of every high performers to be able to control, modulate the breath, and maximize the gas exchange where you have more oxygen. It should
Mm.
be talaga in everyone's regimen. I think I used to have the free diver also break a national record. And he was using my machines, especially the EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy, adaptive contrast.
Oh,
And they were
wow.
able to break the national record. But you know what also I want kasi in a way is I'd like kasi biohacking to be accessible to all. And so
Mm.
I'm really all about the self-health and being with if you're born kasi with this technology, you use what you have. Diba? Kasi nobody will have access to really expensive machines. But it's a real unfair advantage. I mean, it really is. I mean, you biohack time basically. What you could do in 6 months, you could probably do in a month and a half
Mm,
with
yeah.
this machine. Then you could achieve it, and that's why they were able to do that. But it's also parang an unfair advantage, diba? But you know, if you do buteyko every day, that's kind of as organic as you can get using your own what you were born with.
You know, your term unfair advantage, that's a very good way to describe it. In fact, this is one reason why people ask, how come the athletes never endorse? We do have Olympic athletes who endorse, and then we have these athletes who do it. How come they don't endorse Buteyko method? And when we were talking about it with the teachers who had taught these athletes, they mentioned that these athletes don't want people to know their secret, want to maintain their record. They don't want anyone to beat them. They don't want to be beaten, so they don't tell them the real their real secret. They can tell you that what shoes they're using, the clothing, some supplements maybe they endorse them, but the real stuff that really makes them work, they're not saying what it is because they want to
I
maintain the record. They want to keep winning.
I know. I think that that's something that works against me also because the machines really give the athletes an unfair advantage. They never really talk about it as much because, baka they'll copy me and then they'll
Yeah,
they'll beat me or something like that. Diba? It's
listen.
unfair advantage.
So
But yeah,
it's an unfair advantage, which is sadly one reason why no one is endorsed.
yeah, come back another day. Yeah, we're still here. I'll show you everything. But also, I really want to be able to market your practice as well because I think it's so important. Plus,
Mm.
you're the only one, and you're a professional and amazing, and you are acknowledged by Buteyko International as a medical advisor. That's huge. That is so huge. My next question, Doc, is why is it that Buteyko promotes weight loss? Everybody would probably be super interested in this answer. Why does it promote
Wow.
weight loss?
I have a book, by the way, How to Lose Weight Without Exercise. It's on Amazon, so we can look it up. But I'm having, no, it's there. A problem ko lang with Amazon is the royalties don't necessarily get come in, no? But it's there, no? How to Lose Weight with Exercise. So basically, it's like this, Ellie. Earlier, we discussed about how carbon dioxide will help oxygen reach your cells. So a lot of people, their problem is that they don't have enough oxygen actually reaching their cells. Now, when your cell doesn't have enough oxygen, it cannot produce energy using what we call aerobic respiration. So, when there's oxygen, let's just go back to normal. When there's oxygen, your body will produce energy using what we call aerobic respiration. It will produce 32 up to 34 units of ATP, which is the unit of energy of the body.
Adenosine triphosphate. Okay.
There's the tripod, but it has to have a lot of oxygen. When you don't have any oxygen, the cells cannot produce energy through using aerobic respiration, and your cells will definitely they will die. They will not have energy. Now. So what the cells will do is they will produce energy using a non-oxygen producing technique called the anaerobic respiration.
Okay.
Anaerobic meaning anaerobic no oxygen. Anaerobic takes in a lot of carbohydrates. A lot of carbo it only uses carbohydrates and then it only produces about 2 ATPs. Much less than the anaerobic. Anaerobic you use oxygen, carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So you get
Right.
to use fats, proteins, carbohydrates and to produce energy, no? But in aerobic respiration, you don't use the fat. You don't use protein. You only use carbohydrates. So what happens here is people who lack oxygen in their cells, first is because their cells only produce a small amount of energy, you find them getting tired more easily. And then
Right.
because the cells, they use anaerobic, they have to use a lot of carbohydrates, they crave for carbohydrates. They crave for sweets, carbohydrates all the time. Also, they get hungry also because of this, they get hungry easily. Every 4 hours they get hungry. And you might have experienced that when you were asthmatic. Asthmatic, we get hungry every 4 hours.
Yeah.
Why we keep eating, no? And then your body will burn off the carbohydrates. It doesn't burn any of the fat because it's using anaerobic. So your fat tends to accumulate. So you tend to eat a lot more, and then you will accumulate a lot of fat because you cannot burn it there because it's you're using
Oh
anaerobic.
my gosh.
There is a theory, and I believe this theory, Ellie, no? If your cells are constantly on this anaerobic diet, anaerobic respiration for a long period of time, it will mutate. And the area of your cells, which is responsible for the anaerobic, will become bigger and stronger. And the area, the mitochondria, that's the one that produces your anaerobic, they will shrink because they're not being used. And then you will eventually have what we call a cancer cell. A lot of people who have cancer, they had a lot of symptoms of lacking oxygen in their cells before they were diagnosed with cancer. When I asked them about how they were many years ago, they would always tell me, "Oh, Doc, madali ako magutom. I was always craving for carbohydrates and all this." And so they have the symptoms already way before that. Yeah. So again, now if you have oxygen, your body will consume the fats to produce energy. That's why you
Yeah.
lose weight. And then because you're producing a lot more energy, you don't feel tired as much. You don't feel hungry as much. Whereas if you don't have oxygen in the cells, your cells will produce a lot less energy. So you get tired more easily. You will be forced to eat a lot more to produce that energy, and you will be craving for carbohydrates because that's the main fuel of anaerobic, and you don't burn any fat. So the fat can accumulate and you will gain weight.
I love it. I'm so happy I asked that question because you really answered it so well. My gosh, the whole mechanism behind it. But Doc, I'm confused lang about the anaerobic. And so aerobic is with oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen. Is anaerobic kind of like the same as, like when you do HIIT and you're like, it's like you get to that zone where it's anaerobic na, where talagang you're burning na, there's so much lactic acid. Is that the same as being does anaerobic mean you're expending a lot of energy and there's not enough oxygen? It's different from doing, let's say, a breath hold with Buteyko, where there's more carbon dioxide than oxygen.
Okay, our problem here is that a lot of there's no real way to measure this aerobic anaerobic thing, no? Especially during exercise. No, you can put probes and all this. So some people they put the anaerobic when you have a hard time breathing or you can't talk anymore. They have they have different ways of measuring it, no? Or but we don't really know if it's really anaerobic. But we'll talk about the theory behind it. That yes, when you're in anaerobic, if you're really doing a lot of exercise and your body is getting more is you need more energy than the oxygen that you're being able to deliver the cells, your cells will shift to anaerobic. Anaerobic is supposed to be an emergency system from your for your body. It's supposed to be an emergency system. It's not supposed to be something you're supposed to have all the time. When you're resting, you're supposed to be an anaerobic. When you're, you know, so a problem is a lot of us when you're exercising heavily and you deep breathe, deep breathe like this. So when you're not anymore exercising, your body is still deep breathing every now and then. When they're stressed, they're still deep breathing and all that. And then the body shifts into this anaerobic state. And then you're not exercising, but your body's using anaerobic. You're asleep. How do people with sleep apnea breathe? So your
So
body
yeah, mouth breathing.
not breathing. So their body shifted to anaerobic for the entire 8 hours when they're asleep. So
Right.
that's wrong. No, your anaerobic was meant to be like an emergency system. If you're exercising a lot, in the tail end of your exercise, yeah, maybe you go anaerobic every now and then. So it shifts to anaerobic because there's just your body just doesn't have enough oxygen anymore to produce it. But it's not supposed to be meant as something that you're using every day, all the time for 8 hours like this. But also, if you do have Buteyko method, the theory is if you do Buteyko method, you can still prevent that anaerobic incidents even when you're exercising, even when you're in very strong exercises. So one thing with anaerobic, you end up with a lot of muscle pain after, lots of muscle cramps. You can have like difficulty of breathing, very dry mouth. But if you do Buteyko, you can prevent having those muscle and joint pains after exercise because you didn't undergo the anaerobic anymore.
Right. So would you do for athletes, you would train with Buteyko before the actual race? You just nose breathe the whole time instead
Okay.
of breathing through the mouth.
Well, let me first say I had a UAAP athlete. She was a swimmer for one of the universities, and I had the coach change her program. I told her don't do bubbles. You cannot do bubbles because bubbles cause hyperventilation. And then what happened was she was during class hour she would fall asleep already. She was having more anxiety and all this. And I told her it's your training regimen in swimming. And she was about to be kicked out of the swimming team. So I had to train her I had to change the warm up. I had to change the cooling down. And then she would do the Buteyko during exercise. And the good thing is her symptoms disappeared and she was able to keep her scholarship and she was able to stay on the team, no? Because of this. Now, so we can really change the symptoms, no? But the question was, should they do it during competition? The best competition that Buteyko offers now is the competition. Well, first of all, the best competition is the one that's non-competitive. The best sports rather. The best sports are the non-competitive ones because if they're non-competitive, you don't have to really worry about strategy. You don't really have to worry about scoring points. So you can focus more on the breathing. But if you do have to compete, no, the ones that have the best one for instance track and field, yeah, they just have to maintain their breathing while doing track and field. The marathons definitely it works very well for marathons. Yes. But for
Yeah.
those sports wherein there's a lot of, let's say, a lot of strategy involved, a lot of movement and all, yeah, it's a bit more, shall we say, challenging to focus on your breathing.
Yeah.
You're passing the ball, you have to shoot it, you have to focus on your breathing. It's a bit more difficult to do it.
Actually amazed kasi when you say deep breathing, kasi for people when you say deep breathing, it's the way the way we breathe deeply, the big long inhale and then long exhale. But in Buteyko, I find it's quite relative because for Buteyko, your breathing is like you're not breathing at all. It's like there's no movement. It's like a natural breath. So anything bigger than that natural breath is considered deep breathing. Would that be
Oh,
like when you were saying that when somebody has anxiety, they're doing this, it's kind of a fast breath. For us, we would call it shallow. But for you, it's more of it's deep breathing because our natural breath should be practically nothing.
well, you're right on this, Elena. We have a problem with the terminologies, but this is not a problem of Buteyko. When you talk about the Eastern sciences, Zen, you talk about yoga, the Eastern principles, they talk about deep breathing in a different way from the way Westerners talk about it. So it's like this. If you were to dig a hole, I'll just have a picture. If I dig a hole, which one would be deeper? The one that goes here or the one that goes all the way down here?
All the way down.
So if you talk about your breath, I'll just stand up. If I breathe all the way down here, the air goes here, that would be deeper than
Right.
the air going up here. No? So when you talk about the early people who teach yoga and Zen, and they talk about deep breathing, they don't mean putting as much air as possible in your body. What they talk about is putting the air down here on your diaphragm. Air going here because that's deeper. That's deeper than up here. That's how the literature of the old Eastern literature talks about breathing. It's not about having as much air as you can. But however, when this was translated to the Western authors, so we were Philippines were a bit westernized. So
Yes.
and some of the concepts are turning into more Western. Deep breathing became putting as much air as you can into your system, putting everything there like that. But that's not what
Right.
deep breathing meant in the East. In the East, it goes down to your diaphragm. It means very little air, but it's here on your diaphragm, not on your chest.
Right. Makes sense. The perils of mouth breathing. Why are we, modern humanity, why have we become mouth breathers when, if we look at tribes and all, they don't wear braces and they're all nasal breathing? What happened? What happened in humanity that made us mouth breathers? And what are the perils of mouth breathing versus nasal breathing?
Well, first of all, if you look at the anatomy, your nose, this one, no, there's a lot of hair fibers there, and there's also mucus there. So if you breathe through the nose, a lot of the bacteria, the dirt, they get trapped in those hair fibers, so it cleans out your air. Whereas your mouth doesn't have that. You don't have hair. I don't want to have hair there.
It would be weird.
If you breathe through the mouth, all the bacteria all go straight to your throat, go straight to your lungs. So you don't have that filtering capability. The second one is when you breathe through the nose. We've been talking earlier about carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide. There's another gas we should talk about, and this is called nitric oxide. Nitric
Ah,
oxide is also
love.
a vasodilator. It opens up the blood vessels also, and it's produced by the cells of your nose when you breathe through the nose. So if you're breathing into the nose and out through the nose, your nitric oxide becomes bigger. Now imagine now, Ellie, a lot of people a lot of people who have chest pain, we give them nitrates like Endure or something. We have them put it under their tongue. We put them in their mouth. No, it's nitrates to reduce the chest pain. And the nitrates that's produced by your nose automatically if you breathe through your nose. So we have to increase that through nasal breathing. So these are some of the benefits of nasal breathing that you don't get with mouth breathing. I think no, it's really very difficult to say what caused us to become mouth breathers. But from my readings and all, I really think that the modern education system is what started it. Because in the modern education system, we started teaching people how to read, to write, do stuff, and we would imitate our teachers. And then they started teaching somewhere along the way. They started teaching doing deep breathing, breathing like that heavily, and then all that. And that's when it started out, And then in the school system, if you don't follow, you're kicked out. You're failure. So you have to follow and all this. And that's also what happened to me when I was in school. My coaches would teach us to do deep breathing. Teachers would tell us if you're stressed, you deep breathe. Before we start the class, oh everyone, let's all stand up. Let's do deep breathing first. Okay, you feel good. Okay, let's start with the class. Stuff like this. So really, we conditioned people to say that deep breathing was really becoming the norm. The next thing we started teaching people was about carbon dioxide being some sort of poison. It's true that when you exhale, you remove carbon dioxide. That's absolutely true. And when you inhale oxygen, you produce carbon dioxide in your body, and then when you exhale, you remove it. However, in some way, because you remove it, our teachers started to teach us that hey, because you're removing it, it means it's a waste product. It means your body doesn't want it. It means it's bad for you. And then that became like ingrained in us. Now it's bad for us because our body's removing it. When in reality, it doesn't really mean that way. I mean, like Ellie, do you urinate?
Yes, of
Yes, of
course.
course. You urinate. You sweat out? Yes,
Yeah.
right? Now, you urinate and sweat, that's water. So, does it mean that water is bad for your body? You should remove all the water in your body? No.
Good
No,
point.
your body's removing it, but you need to have a good amount of water in your body, or else you will die. The same with carbon dioxide. Your body's removing it, but you need to maintain. a good amount of carbon dioxide in your body, or else you will also die. Or you will have a lot of symptoms like asthma, hypertension. You will have a lot of these panic attacks when your carbon dioxide is too low. But our teachers, they just sort of trained us that carbon dioxide is bad for us, carbon dioxide should be removed, carbon dioxide is poison, and that got ingrained to us in our system, no, in our school system.
I
That's
have
what
to
I
unlearn the yeah,
mm,
so Doc, would you say that like kind of have some sort of Buteyko program that's introduced already in young children so that I feel kasi that the jawbone it's too narrow and that's why we have wisdom teeth that we need to be extract because the jaw space doesn't accommodate all when
mm,
in reality nature doesn't really create excess or anything that or any mistakes diba? So why is everybody removing wisdom teeth? So if you see like the tribes and everything, their jawbones are actually really wide and then kasha lahat and very straight. There's no need for crooked teeth kasi kasha lahat. And then later on, I want to interview John Manalang and his mom because they're craniodontists, and I wanna ask about kasama yan lahat, the breathing, the craniosacral work as well, neural organizational technique, and the teeth. Kasama yan lahat, the jaw connected to the sacro-occipital. So would you say that if we had something like that, like from birth or whatever, I don't know, how do we implement something like Buteyko,
yeah.
from a young age?
About from birth now, you will notice that newborn babies are nasal breathers. Their mouth is closed, they breathe through the nose. And I have 4 kids, and each of them I watched them when they were born. They were just really nasal breathers. They mouths closed, but they
Yeah.
started to change to become mouth breathers, or they started to have their mouth open when they became toddlers. Everything is new to them, and wow, wow, like that. So we have to really teach them to keep the mouth closed to be the mouth closed. So it's like this, Elena. If you close your mouth and you rest your tongue on your upper palate, you will feel that your tongue is pushing against your teeth.
Like
Yeah, just
parang
feel it like
mewing.
yeah, it's just pushing it like that, no? Just rest it. Yeah, it's pushing it. When your mouth is open, you don't push it. There's no pushing, no? So
Oo.
the thing is, that tongue that pushes against your teeth, that gives a small pressure, and if that pressure always it's always constantly there, your jaw will become bigger and bigger. Well, not for us because we're adults, but for little children whose bones are still very soft, there's still information, that constant pressure will push the jaw to become bigger, and that will be the reason why they don't have wisdom teeth problems when the wisdom tooth comes out. But I noticed that it starts to come out also during toddler. So we have to train them with the toddler. And then I'm also quite convinced that it's also in the diet, no? A lot of our food now is fully processed, full of
Mhm.
carbohydrates and sugars, and that I think will affect the way they open their mouth. They keep
Yeah.
it open like that. I think
Yeah.
it has an effect on it.
That's so interesting, Doc. Kasi if you read the book Breath by James Nestor, so he talks about all of the tumo, the breathing of Wim Hof, kasama, and he also includes mewing. So mewing, apparently there's an apparatus that you can use to exactly what you said is to exercise up the palate to widen, and it's still to a certain extent moldable pa. It's still pwede pang i-move pa eh. Diba? Like in osteopathy, diba, the pterygoid can be moved and everything. So to a certain extent, pwede pa. And what happens is that the faces of people pumapayat or gumaganda. It becomes
Yes.
more symmetrical when there's a non-expansion of the jawbone from that mewing apparatus, which I used before. I used to do it before I got tamad lang. We really need to establish a practice in order to really get an outcome, diba? But
Yes.
yeah, that there's those possibilities of that. And then also what I find that, the toddlers, they're nose breathers because they still have gills for breastfeeding. So
Mm,
that they have to be able to breathe through the nose so that while breastfeeding, they can still breathe. And they kind of have gills, like
mm,
temporary gills, and they can breathe through those, which comes as a parang vestiges of our evolutionary, our fish ancestors from the primordial sea way, 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 way back pa. So it kind of serves a little bit of a purpose pa. And
mm.
then, kasi, di ba, we also go through our evolution as we grow from babyhood to toddler. We kind of start off as fish, we become reptiles, and then mammals na. So it's so interesting to see. I love that. I just love connecting all of these little things. So
I
wait,
find it so interesting too. Yeah. Mm.
yeah. So Doc, so what I do is I also tape my mouth at night.
Yes.
So that's part of Buteyko breathing. Is this something that, people who are watching here, they just found out about Buteyko, ganyan. Would they be able to tape their mouth agad tonight? Or what do you suggest they do?
What I found, it's more effective that we start first with the breathing exercises before the mouth taping. Because the mouth taping, if a person's not yet, you see your body has a certain rhythm on the breathing. No? If you don't adjust that and you just simply force your body to just close like this, your body while you're asleep will start to take in more air. Will still have that rhythm. And sometimes it was some panic. You're like, why am I not, why is it taped? Then I want more air like this, and your body will panic. So you start first with the breathing exercises first to make your breathing, to adjust the breathing, and then the taping will come in next. Now there is the old Buteyko program, the original one. They do focus on taping first before they do the breathing exercises. Now, you know my history, Ellie. No? After I graduated from medical school, I volunteered to work in Africa. I was in the forest there, and we were up in the mountain, and we had a tribe. No, we had tribes. And believe it or not, even if there's no pollution in that area, asthma rates were very very high. There were a lot of people with asthma. It was very bad asthma. So I started teaching Buteyko method in this community, and we didn't have tape. We didn't have the appropriate tape for the mouth taping. And what I found was, even without the mouth taping, they did improve. And they were able to control the asthma. A lot of things really improved now, even without the mouth taping. So yes, I came to more emphasize that the breathing exercise is really much more important than the mouth taping itself.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I find this so interesting as you say that because of Germanische Heilkunde, Germanic New Medicine. When we look at asthma kasi doc, it's a territorial fear. So it's a fear for my territory, a future fear for my territory being threatened, being taken away. My land, my village, my job, my kids, my family. It's actually the same as COVID. COVID, the flu, equals the flu. Except that in asthma, kasama yung bronchial muscles. That's why there's spasms. The
Mm.
spasm of not being able to breathe. It's like the height of healing for. But I just find it interesting that nobody knows about GHK in Africa. You didn't know really about GHK or GNM while you were there, and yet it resolved, the biological program from the physical level, which I still think, if GHK, I'm sorry if my colleagues are listening, and GHK purists out there, like, don't use anything external. Use it from the psyche. It needs to be changed. Like, for example, if you're scared about your territory, about losing your job, the way to resolve it is to ensure that you don't lose it. So it has to be some sort
Yeah.
of biological solution, which involves the life story. Real life, a real life. Or you can change or reframe the mindset around the anxiety. Is it reasonable to be afraid that you're going to lose your job, or are you just inventing stories, inventing fear? So if it's not,
Mhm.
then maybe lose the fear, diba? Be
Yes,
more
yes.
objective about it. But here, none of that is there. We are just using a breathing mechanism that seems to resolve, whether it's psychobiological or not, seems to resolve it. So it's quite fascinating to me.
Really, a lot of things are interconnected, and no single therapy has a monopoly over something. Now, for instance,
Agree.
if we do get to relax your breathing, and you start to be able to be more relaxed, and you get to you start to relax this, the mind there are a lot of things that will change in the way you're thinking. No, I wouldn't be surprised if the territorial threat disappears while you're doing breathing exercise, you're relaxing. No? So this is why sometimes even other techniques not related or doesn't seem to be related to the Germanic technique still works, and they
Yeah.
still have the same result now, because it can still resolve or have a very similar effect, even if the way it was done is a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have to comment though that, okay, so in 2014 when I had asthma, Teco totally helped. I mean, nawala siya for 10 years. Until I did have a psychobiological root cause for asthma in 2024. Talagang territorial fear na malaki. And then it resolved and I did get asthma. I had a 24-hour asthma attack that, heightened. It reached the peak at 4 a.m., which actually I could have passed away, I think. I really call it my second birth because it was so severe that it was ER worthy. But I used everything I knew, my mind, my psyche, brain organ, my training with biohacking. I did Buteyko and it
Yeah.
worked for about, it worked for an hour or two. But then the healing phases kasi, they get worse as you approach the vagotonic hours, so 6 p.m. onwards. And
Wow.
then the height of vagotonia is 4 a.m. If you survive that height, you're good. So because, I was healing something else also aside from asthma. I had an endoderm healing. So I had night sweats and I was spitting out bloody sputum and everything. I was healing so much. There was no time for me to seek help. So ako na lang, that's it, pansit. Just have to rely on everything that I know, all of my training for 10 years. And Buteyko didn't work. However, what I knew is that at 7 a.m. pag akyat ng araw, when the sun goes up, the symptoms will dissipate.
Yeah.
Kasi there's a circadian rhythm kasi for healing phases. And true enough, it did.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I think, having so many tools in your toolbox and then, try everything and whatever works for you, that's what you use. It just, makes sense to be on your toes and to
Yes.
be, yeah, to not to have any beliefs and just do whatever you can. Yeah.
That's a good. That's. Thank you for sharing that. I like it, no? Yeah, and it's true that good thing you recovered and you were able to find something that really works, no? That's why it's also important to learn more and more because we eventually will find something that will work much better.
Yeah, I think what I should have done at the time when because I was getting micro attacks before, maybe I was getting it over several months before. And then maybe what I should have done is I should have gotten into a daily Buteyko habit to maybe attenuate the real height of healing. Maybe it would have been not as severe as it was because it was just a build up talaga of that territorial fear that finally resolved and then yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Doc, so what I would like for you, if it would be okay for you to share where we can reach you, when is your next workshop? Because I'm sure a lot
My
of people are interested.
my number, my number, my email.
There.
So this is
Okay.
this is Viber, by the way.
That's Viber.
This is
Okay.
Viber. But if I can I share my screen?
Yes, Doc, your co-host.
Yeah. So here, for instance, now this is my. Let's share this one.
There's your book in
Yeah.
Lazada.
This is my book in Lazada. So if you'd like to purchase my book, this is Breathing Recovery Control of Your Breath. Talks about how to use Buteyko method to control asthma. And then my program for asthma, it's called Beat Asthma. Buteyko Ellie doesn't have a nice name. I mean, people can't even spell it properly, here in the Philippines. So I rebranded it as Beat Asthma. This is an online program. So it's similar to Udemy. You have online modules, and then I can teach
Yes.
them one-on-one, either face-to-face or online. And then for those who have sleep apnea, I call the program called Snore No More. For those of you here who are listening and would like to have a free sleep assessment, you can try out this QR code. I'm offering it here in this talk. So this is a QR code, and let me see if I can bring this bigger.
Yeah.
So this is the sleep offer. You can use this QR code. But if you have asthma, you can write it down as well so I can get your information. It'll just be a few questions about sleep, and then I can get back to you and get back to you to see how I can help you.
Okay, fabulous. For those who are listening, audio only, if this is not video, we can reach you, Doc, at can you say your number and your email, Doc?
Yes, my email is drflorendo@gmail.com, drflorendo@gmail.com. And then my cell phone number, and this is Viber, 0998-575-8841, 0998-575-8841. Oh, I have WhatsApp also.
Okay, and what
WhatsApp
about your
and
social media handles?
in Facebook, I'm Charles Edward Florendo. I have a page, the Beat Asthma, Dr. Charles Edward Florendo. That's my YouTube and my Facebook.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. I was wondering if we could do like we only have maybe let's say 8 minutes or something. Could we do something very basic? People have an idea of what it is because we keep talking about it, but they don't really know what it is. But maybe they could experience something very, very quick.
Oh, of course, of course. All right. Are you up to it?
Yes, of course.
All
Clyde, are you up to
right.
it? This breathing method will change your life. Anybody who is watching right now, wow, oxygen is life.
Okay, let me show you. This is what my program looks like. When you enroll in the course, people who enroll in the course will have a online system that has this. All the lessons are here. And today, let's try out the hands on chest and tummy program. So this is a
Okay.
favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I'll have to share the sound. I don't normally do this for everyone. Okay, so this will run for around 5 minutes. Okay, I'll see you. The hands on chest and tummy will allow you to slow down the speed of the air you're breathing and also reduce the depth of your breathing. To begin, you will be putting one hand here on your tummy and your other hand on your chest. And you will be breathing in slow and light. Your breath out should be very slow and relaxed. The breath out should be unforced, passive, gentle, and about 1.5 the length of your breath in. The breath in during rest is active and your breath out is passive. I want you to allow your exhalation to happen naturally. So let's begin with the hands on chest and tummy. I want you to put one hand on your chest and the other on your tummy. I would like you to sit straight up as to not compress the diaphragm. Imagine there is a piece of string pulling you upwards from the top of the back of your head. Lengthen the distance between your navel and your sternum. Pay attention to your breathing. I would like you to notice the slightly colder air coming into the nose and the slightly warmer air leaving the nose. Look down at your breathing. Can you see your breathing? Feel your breathing. Feel the slightly colder air as it enters your nostrils and feel the slightly warmer air as it leaves your nostrils. Concentrate on your breathing. Use this as a measure of your concentration. For how long can you hold your attention to your breathing before your mind wanders? If your mind is wandering a lot, you will get even more from this exercise. Keep bringing your attention back to your breathing. Feel the slightly colder air entering your nostrils and feel the slightly warmer air leaving your nostrils. I would like you to slow down the speed of air as it enters your nostrils. Breathe so gentle that hardly any air enters your nose. Breathe so soft that the fine hairs within the nose do not. Take a slow, light breath in through your nose. And as you breathe out, bring a feeling of relaxation throughout your body. After you breathe out, wait until you feel the need to take a breath in again. Then take a soft, slow, gentle breath in. At the top of the breath, allow a relaxed, slow, gentle breath out. I would like you to really concentrate on slowing down your breathing so that you are taking less air into your body. Don't hold your breath or interfere with your breathing muscles. Instead, soften your breathing so that the amount of air you are taking into your body is less than what it was before you started. The goal is to create a feeling that you would like to take in more air, to feel an air hunger. To create air hunger, your breathing now should be less than what it was before you started. I need you to feel a want for air, a feeling that you would like to take in a deeper breath. But instead of taking a deeper breath, resist this temptation and take in slightly less air than you would normally. If your breathing muscles contract or if they start to feel tense, then the air hunger is too strong. When this happens, take a rest for 15 seconds and start again. It is normal at the beginning to take a rest a few times during the exercise. With practice, it becomes easier to sustain the air hunger for longer periods of time. Soften your breath to the point of air hunger. Now, as you inhale, just take in around 80% of air into your lungs. When you inhale, feel that you breathe in until 80% of your lungs is full. Do not fill your lungs to the fullest, only around 80%. The goal is to create a feeling that you would like to take in more air, to feel an air hunger. You have just learned one of the controlled breathing activities. Okay, so we have.
Wow.
Did you like it?
Amazing because it's gentle and I still felt the air hunger and then it vasodilated.
Yes, it's very
Amazing.
different from what you learned from Jack.
Very,
It's
very,
very
very.
different. It's not difficult anymore. Much easier. And by the way, I'd like to show you just a little bit of the platform. I do offer it as a platform, and in my platform, you'll notice that there are actually a lot of other exercises, versions of the exercise you can do. And it's a very complete platform. I have a total of 40 exercises, different kinds here. And then if you enroll, I'll be able to help the person go one on one, and I'll guide them to these and select which ones will be best for the person. You don't have just one exercise, you have a variety of them, and they're all, we'll choose the ones that will be best for you.
Wonderful, Doc. Okay, so we'll share the link to that in the show notes, also in the comments here, if people are interested in enrolling in that. Would that be self-paced, Doc, or are they required to do a one-on-one with you when they enroll in that course?
My best program is a one-on-one with me. So
Oh,
as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have anyone guiding you, like doing this, it's
yeah.
uncomfortable. Even if it's nice, after a while, it doesn't push through. You have to really enroll and get someone to guide you para magawa talaga properly.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, Doc, for sharing us your knowledge and wisdom. You are such an asset, such a treasure in the Philippines, of course, in the alternative health circle, also in the medical circle, of course, but in the biohacking center, in the biohacking circle also. So a lot of people, because I'm encouraging to get into self-health, and Buteyko is one of the most powerful ones that is so simple, so effective, bang for your buck.
Thank you, Ellie. Well, I'll see you soon in your center. We'll make it available there.